Hey guys, it's Jen over at worldofjencraft.com, and this is our project for today. Isn't that just absolutely beautiful? So when I finished my last card using the Waterfront stamp set, I decided to do a little bit of searching on YouTube to see if I could find a little bit more inspiration. And what I found was a just game changer for me with this set. It was a video tutorial by Jackie Bolhuis. I will leave her name in the description if you would like to check her YouTube channel out. She used the stamp set with watercolor. Mind blown, let me tell you. As soon as I saw it, I grabbed out my stuff and I started to create my scene. This just turned out so beautiful, and it really does look like you have hand watercolored this scene. It almost looks like a postcard. Isn't that just, oh. So I'm going to stop oohing and awing over it. And I'm going to get to the actual stamping and supplies and everything, because it is a little bit detailed. So if you bear with me through this, I think that you will absolutely love the end results. Again, if you wanted to see her video as well, I'll have it listed in the description. So let me get to the supplies used. Let me throw this up here. For this card, we don't really have hardly any supplies. The Waterfront stamp set is obviously what I used on this. And I did bring in Pear Pizzazz, Crushed Curry, Early Espresso, Soft Sky, Dapper Denim, and Tranquil Tide. And then I did use soft suede when I sponged the edges of my soft suede cardstock. So, and then I also used a little bit of Clear Wink of Stella, as you see on a couple different places on my card. Let's go ahead and just get started with the stamping. So I had to go grab a piece of paper to put underneath of my area, because I will be doing a little bit of stamping off of this. And then the other thing I wanted to recommend, which I didn't do with this, but I think I am going to go ahead and do with this one, is I'm going to put a little foamy thing underneath to use with the photopolymer stamps, because they just don't have that give that the red rubber ones do. So the first thing that I'm going to start off with, if I can find it underneath of all of my layers of stamp pads, is I'm going to grab out the Early Espresso ink, and I'm going to make sure that I have my water brush. I did not use, I'm not sure which one this is. I just grabbed whichever one was handy. So, and then I'm going to grab out what looks like this mountain scene here, and I'm going to go ahead and just start stamping on this. So I'm going to just trying to see how far down I wanted to start, and each one of these is going to turn out a little bit different. So I'm just going to stamp that there and go ahead and stamp out another one. And I'm going to take my water brush, and I'm just going to add enough water just to get that ink flowing on our watercolor paper. And look at how much color and how much brighter it looks when you bring that water pen on here. And then what it does also is it brings in the way the water ends up pooling on here, is you end up having your own kind of natural shelves and stuff. When that dries, then it kind of creates just a natural look to the mountains. So there's that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ink again. I'm going to ink this up, and then I'm going to stamp off. And this should be dry enough right now. We might have to pull out our heat gun to set it. And so then to create this peak here, I went ahead and brought it up about like that. And then I'm going to do another one, probably coming off of it over here. And I brought another one just a little bit on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and using my water brush again, this is going to create, and maybe that one is going to still be dark because I did not stamp off on that one. So, and I think I'm going to come down here and just kind of fill in this area where my ink, so you get that definition of, it looks like different peaks in through here. So this one is going to be that lighter one because I did stamp off on this one. It's almost like magic when that water hits the paper and how it kind of blends everything in together. Then I'm going to come over here. This one was that other one that I did not stamp off on, but I think it'll still work. And it'll still give that illusion of having that other mountain up in the background. And I think I'm going to come in here and just color this a little bit too. Maybe this area. So I think that I'm going to go ahead and leave. And can you see all that? Isn't that just beautiful, all that dimension and everything that you get? So the next one that I'm going to grab is going to be my Pear Pizzazz. And this is going to be the grassy area. And I may or may not get this to look exactly like the first one that I did. But that's okay. It's kind of cool because then each one turns out a little bit different. So I'm going to start with, I think I'm going to start with it like this side here. And I'm just going to come over here and stamp that down. And then I'm going to bring it over here and kind of fill in this area here. And I had a little bit more, so I might just kind of bring this in here. And maybe I'll fill in this area here. And then we're going to take our water brush, making sure that you have the early espresso off of it. And then we're just going to blend all of this together. And you will find that where the ink went over another part of the ink, you're still going to have almost like it looks like different levels of grass. And I'm just going to kind of blend it on up into my mountains. So it looks like the grass is definitely coming down from the mountains into the flatland, I guess. So I kind of like how this blended in through up here where the mountains just kind of are coming down into the grassy area. The next thing that we're going to bring in is we're going to bring our soft sky in. And this is this larger stamp here. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to kind of want to overlap where my grass is. And then I'm going to bring this over a little bit and stamp again here. And again, we're going to take our watercolor and we're just going to start blending all of that together. And even though this looks complicated and it looks like it takes a lot of time, it really doesn't. The water blends so nicely right away. The other thing that you want to make sure of when you are working with your water brush is you don't want a ton of water to be coming out of your water brush. You want a nice flow to it, but you just want to make sure that it's not pooling up. So you don't want so much water coming out that you have pooling going on. And see how that's just kind of creating a nice soft look in through there. And it really does look like it's water moving. All right. I'm going to take the same stamp set, or same stamp, excuse me, and this time I am going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp off. And I'm just going to kind of fill in these areas here, just with this lighter shade. And I think I might do one more, just kind of coming down here a little bit. And it looks like some of my ink kind of got, might flip this quick so I'm not mixing my ink because it is kind of staying on top when I stamp over. So then I'm just going to go ahead and blend all of that where you get this really nice soft lighter image and shade of the water as it's coming down off of the paper. And then where some of it is actually kind of missing, and you can see where I've overlapped, it's going to be a little bit darker. And then like down here, I didn't quite get it with the stamp, so it's just going to kind of fill in a little bit. Oops. And I'm just moving in a kind of a circular motion as I'm doing this, just kind of blending that together. Might come up here and kind of blend this in a little bit more together so you don't have such a stark contrast between that darker image that was stamped and the lighter ones. You just kind of want that all to kind of blend in together. All right, and I think what I did is, once this is dry, I felt like this was like way too dark up in through here, and there wasn't enough. It was like went from dark to light. So what I did is I brought in my same stamped image again, and I went back over it. I was kind of waiting for this to dry a little bit before I moved on. So hopefully, I think that's about good. Yep. So I came back in here, inked it up, stamped it off, and I went ahead and brought a little bit more ink into it. And again, we're just going to blend that in. I was just kind of, once I got familiar with how all of the stamps looked when they were put together, that gave me a little bit more creative, not expression, but just a little bit more creativity that I could see once they all kind of started coming together. So I'm going to make sure that this is dry, and now we're going to bring in our Dapper Denim for this darker, really beautiful flow to that area there. And that is going to be done up with the stamp here. See which way I started. I believe I started with, it's looking like this. So, and I just did this full on, and I came up and I started a little bit off, but I wanted to also start where my water was meeting the grass. And then I just brought this down a little bit over each other. So I kind of, trying to think of how I did this. I think I brought it like that. And then I may have, trying to think of how, I think, yeah. And I think then I flipped it and brought it down here a little bit. And I just kind of kept going down with it. So maybe overlapping it a little bit until I finally got down here towards the bottom where it's just coming off. So, and you can see it's not turning out exactly like the first one, but it'll still be just as beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead, and this Dapper Denim turned out so beautiful on top of everything. I just love the rich color that it turned once I added the water to it. So I'm just moving in smaller circular motions still, and just kind of blending as I go. Kind of get up in here. And at first it kind of might look like a hot mess, but it's kind of weird because when you're done with it all, then you can really see that it does look like this water that is kind of has a mind of its own that's floating off into the distance here. So just kind of filling in as needed, and there, that's just kind of running off the edge. So I'm going to clean off my water brush, and I'm going to bring in my Tranquil Tide for my trees. And these are going to go just up here in this grassy area, and I kept all 3 trees in for this part. So there's that, and it doesn't look like much when you first stamp it because you can kind of still see that watercolor coming through. And then these I moved up just a little bit more, and I only kept a couple of them on this particular part. So we're just going to go ahead and take this and make sure your blue is off, and we're just going to run and get all of our little trees colored in. Kind of have a hard time talking and doing this at the same time. And generally I would just fast forward through all of this, but I really wanted you guys to see the transformation that these take on while you're doing the watercolor. It's just kind of magical to me as it starts to transform, and you can really see the effect that that water has coming on here. And I have a very light hand too. I'm barely pressing that tip of my brush down onto this to get this look. It's just enough water coming out and just enough of the tip to be able to blend all of the ink. All right. The next thing I believe I did, I think I want to go ahead and I'm going to stamp. So I'm bringing back this one here, and I'm going to bring out my Soft Sky again, because when I was working on this, I felt like there was way too much white space up here. It felt like it was really stark. So I just brought this in, and I just kind of started stamping. So just making sure that you're stamping off and placing it wherever you feel needs a little bit of color. And then the nice thing about it too is as we start to watercolor it, you can blend it all together, so you don't need a ton of ink down. So I'm just going to stamp that there and make sure that I have all of my dark off of here. And then I'm just going to, again, with a really light hand, just kind of blend all of this together. And this one I'm just kind of running it straight across. And if you wanted to, you can kind of do circular motions to get a little bit more interest in the sky. Now when you get down in here to your trees, you're going to kind of want to be careful that you're not grabbing that ink. And yes, I probably could have and should have stamped out my sky ahead of time, but this is how I did it the last time, and it worked out just fine. So just be careful when you reach your trees that you're not grabbing that Tranquil Tide ink and carrying it up into your sky. And that should be just about right. Kind of feel a little risky getting there in between the trees. So then there's your sky, and it just kind of turns out this nice soft look. I'm going to grab out this little speckled stamp here, and I brought some of that down into my lighter water. So just a little bit in here. And then I did bring just a little bit up into the sky for, I don't know, just a little more interest in there. And then I'm going to bring back my Dapper Denim, if I can find where, oh, I actually put that one away. I don't remember putting the lid onto that, but apparently I did. And then I did come back over with the Dapper Denim in this area and just gave a few of these little kind of speckly things in this area over here. So I think that's all I'm going to do with that. Bringing out our crushed curry, we're going to put a little bit of sun in here. And so this is just going to go maybe up here a little above our tree. And then making sure I have all of that blue off of my water brush, I'm just going to, what am I going to do? Just watercolor it all in. One thing I did do with my son is I started off, and at first I thought I had ruined it, but it did end up turning out okay. I took very lightly and kind of brought some of that up. You know, so maybe you kind of had some sun rays. And just kind of, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of bringing it down a little bit from there. And maybe this one turned out a little more wonky than the other one, but I really thought that turned out kind of cool. I'll bring it up here a little bit and see. You could certainly leave the sun as it is if you would like to. I think that that is it. We've got everything. We've got the sun, the sky, the water, so I'm going to set this aside just for a brief moment as it continues to dry. Just kind of put that over there, and I'm going to bring back in my paper. And I don't remember now. Usually that's one of the first things I go over. I think I did. But just in case, because I don't remember going over these. Oh, my brain has gone completely dead. I don't know if that ever, well, I'm sure it happens to some of you guys. This is soft suede, and this is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. And then I have a piece of early espresso, which is 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. And the watercolor paper, you're going to have the smaller one that we just colored on is going to be 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. And that would be this larger one, excuse me. And then the smaller one is going to be 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to put this on to my card base. And I did not pop this up. I suppose you probably could. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is my Tombow doesn't really want to stick to the watercolor paper. So if I was not doing this for demonstration purposes and wanting to send this card out, I would use a thicker adhesive, something a little more sturdy. So maybe a tear and tape. I also, oh, that's kind of off the screen. Sorry about that. And then I also have like my Scotch ATG gun is nice. So just kind of be aware of that. It's kind of wanting to come up a little bit. So then I'll go ahead and I'll put our finished scene on here. For this particular card, I chose not to put a sentiment on the front because I felt like it would take away from the scene itself. I didn't want to put any words on here. So what I will do is I will put something on the inside, probably put another piece of Whisper White in the inside, maybe a 3 3/4 by 5, and then just put whatever sentiment that I will use for the occasion for this card, which is kind of cool because this card could be used for anything. A hello, you know, congratulations, a sympathy card, just the possibilities for this really are endless. The very final thing that I did is I went ahead and added some Wink of Stella. So I'm just going to start with my sun. Maybe put a little bit here on the little rays that we made. And then I'm going to put some down here into my Dapper Denim, into the water. And I was very generous with this because I have found with the watercolor paper, it does have a tendency to kind of soak in the shimmer a little bit. So I did go over this a couple different times with my Wink of Stella just to make sure that it had that shimmer. I think this turns out so beautiful. It looks like the sun is sparkling down into this, this water that's coming down here. The other thing that I did after I was done is you want to make sure that you run your shimmer brush a little bit on a piece of scrap paper because it will pick up the color from the ink. But I went and just kind of dotted some Wink of Stella, just a little bit to make it look like you had little tiny peaks of water, you know, as the sun catches it. So I think that looks about right. I'm going to bring my card up so you guys can see what it looks like with that Wink of Stella on there. I don't know if you can catch the extra little sparkles that come up in this area. So it's not going to be as drastic as this, but you will have a few little hints of sparkle. Maybe this one shows it a little bit better, I don't know. But it's there, I promise. So that is it. This is our card. And it actually feels more like a piece of art that you could frame and put on your desk. And you could also do that too. You could take this and frame it and give it as a gift for someone. So just a couple of different ideas. So that's it. Both of the cards, I used the exact same colors, exact same stamps, and they did turn out a little bit different for each one. So thank you for hanging out with me and watching this. I really appreciate it. I hope that you guys too will try the same thing. I guess I didn't do this, and it probably doesn't matter, but I did take along the edges. Now that I'm looking at both cards and seeing one is a little bit different from the other, but I guess it doesn't matter. But I did take the soft suede, and I put it on the edges. And I guess maybe thinking about the framed piece, it does kind of help frame everything in from the outside edges of the card all the way into that scene. So, all right. I do think that that does make a difference, having the edges sponged on there a bit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dimensions, details will be listed on my website, worldofgencraft.com, if you'd like to go over there and check it out. I hope to see you guys later. Thanks for hanging out and watching. I'll talk to you. Bye.